All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 99th episode of Tequila Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching this on demand when you have a chance. We're joined today by Ms. Amy Looper. She is a CEO and founder and sales trainer and performance coach. She specifically deals with working parents, caregivers, women in sales teams, and all sorts of cool stuff. And she's going to be talking to us today about 4 shifts to eliminate chronic stress and burnout, which I think everybody is feeling periodically, if not for certain right now. I just was on a call right before this where everybody was talking about how they've never been more burned out than right now, even worse than during the COVID experience and the pandemic and everything like that, which I found really fascinating. So thanks for stopping by. Amy, you're in charge. We'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Ryan, for having me. Okay, guys, burnout, everyone's talking about burnout. It's like you can't turn a corner without someone talking about this buzzword. But really what I want to do today is help you guys have some tactical things to walk away with to really make your lives easier. But before we really dive into all the tips and things I have to share with you guys, I'd love to kind of just open up the discussion here on, what are you guys experiencing? I'd love to get to know each and every one of you since we have a small group. Do you guys want to just do a quick round of introductions?
Love that. Can I start?
Yeah.
So I'm Ryan, and it's funny that we're talking about this exact topic, and Amy, you said it's relevant as well, but my 9-month-old will just scream crying in the background as we were going through the introduction. So it's funny how that works out, but I'm co-founder of GTM United. I've been an individual contributor and sales leader for the entirety of my career outside of the entrepreneurial endeavors that I've been pursuing with my friend Scott. And yeah, I think this topic is extremely relevant for me, especially around the idea of having a young child, trying to balance that with building this community. A lot of the work that we're doing, as Scott already mentioned before we started recording, with all of the different initiatives that we have going on inside GTM United, figuring out how to effectively prioritize my time and how to balance the inevitable stress that comes with starting a business, managing a young family, and especially anything related to sort of go-to-market functions in sales in particular. There's always, what have you done for me lately mentality, and high performers, at least from my experience, put a lot of that pressure on themselves, not just sort of externalities or external forces that impose that stuff. So that's really why I'm super excited about this topic in particular.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome that you're feeling stress and burnout, but it's great to really recognize, like, we do put that pressure on ourselves because we're high performers, we're high achievers, and at some point along your path, your brain really attached to this cool experience of achieving, and then it felt really awesome doing it, and you're like, I got to keep doing that, right, over and over and over and over again. And so sometimes then you get into that pattern of like push, and that can kind of just go out of control out of after a while. Yeah. Who else wants to introduce themselves? Anybody?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jessica Kite. I work for a company called Cvent. It's tech for hospitality and event planners. And I've experienced burnout in the past, and I'm trying not to experience burnout at my new job. I just started in April. And so, like Scott always says, like at a job, like you're learning, earning, and not burning. Like that's what you want to be doing. So I'm learning and earning, and I'm just trying to keep the burning at bay. But sometimes I have some fear or anxiety because it's like imperative now that I keep boundaries, and I have fear that if I have the boundary, that then my job that I'll be seen as less than at work, or that my job will be in peril. Like I'll be the one that they want to cut if we ever have cuts or whatever. So, having a little bit of PTSD from the pandemic and things like that from it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I really want to keep the boundary and not burn, but burn out. But I have some concerns sometimes. Like every time I set the boundary, I'm proud of myself for doing it, but I get worried.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to talk about that roller coaster today, because when we are in fear and anxiety, right? That just brings in that whole emotional roller coaster. And that's where our performance goes up one year, we burn out the next, and we go up again and down. And so we will help you learn how to see and become self-aware of things that might be happening in your life that will be able to eliminate that roller coaster and really have you go upward in a trajectory, at least plateau in a high performance, right? But we want you to be able to climb over time as well. Excellent. Brian, Connor, welcome. Brent, welcome. If any of you want to introduce yourself, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I can introduce myself. Brian Potter. I'm Director of Field Consulting at a company here in Austin called Dialpad. Just over 6 months now. And so similar to what Jessica said, it's coming into a new organization, relatively startup, high growth, right? And so there's always more to be done. And so I think a lot of us are also working virtually. And so, you're just going meeting to meeting all day long. And then at the end of the day, a lot of times you haven't really accomplished anything. You've just been in meetings all day. So then it comes down to actually getting work done after hours. So yeah, as Jessica said, trying to find the boundary and the balance between doing the very best that you can and being that high achiever. And then also, right, having that personal life and not burning yourself out in, the first 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. Brian, do you feel like those meetings that you're bouncing to all over the day, are you feeling like you're able to make an impact in those meetings? Or is there a place where you're like, you know what, I feel like I'm just stuck in this cycle of the Zoom and I just am not making the impact and really having that meaningful experience that I'm looking for as a human being?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it's probably like the 80-20 rule in the negative way, right? I mean, probably 80% of the meetings you're in, you're just kind of sitting there, people talking in circles, playing office as opposed to getting stuff done. So especially if you feel like you're a high achiever, want to be a high achiever, right? It can feel a little bit like you're running in quicksand. So
okay.
Amy, can I pepper in one other piece to that? Because I lived that in my last full-time leadership role. There's a point of diminishing returns when it comes to meetings and Zoom meetings, especially in a virtual environment. And if you're context switching, especially high growth startups, there's a lot more work to do than there are people to do it. So especially if you're in any sort of leadership function that is customer facing or responsible for a number, when you're also managing a team, like there's so many stakeholders that you have to manage, internal and external, where you get into this cyclical loop of meeting after meeting after meeting that to Brian's point, then you get off all those calls and say, okay, time to do my actual job. But it just feels unproductive. And when it feels unproductive, to Brian's point, like I think it feels, it drains you emotionally and it makes you show up as less than what your full potential is when you actually get into the next meeting. So it's like, it just feels like this loop. And I think a lot of folks, and I'm sort of projecting here, but are responsible in part by not being more like super on top of why they are taking a meeting and holding a meeting, as opposed to protecting their calendar and knowing what is going to be actually conducive to doing their job and doing it well and supporting the people on their team. But at the same time, if you're supposed to be in the meeting and there's not anyone else that's going to be there to represent your team, your function, or whatever, you just need somebody to step up, and you feel obligated to do that. And again, high achievers like just normally say, raise my hand and say, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. And you ended up, I think, shooting yourself in the foot sometimes.
100%. I think we could do a whole session on people pleasing and how to get rid of it. I literally spent 3.5 years of being a founder doing that in my own life. Like that was my biggest struggle. It was like, I realized how much of a people pleaser I had become being in sales and, a leader over the years. You just try to do your best. Right. And in that cycle of being a parent or a leader of a team or any of the things we do in life, the one way we do something is the one way we do absolutely everything. So everything we're going to talk about today will help you impact and improve your career, your life, and also your personal relationships. So we're going to talk very holistically. Okay, who else needs to do a little introduction? Love to hear from you.
Brent, are you on mute?
Yeah, Brent, you came off. Put you on the spot.
Nope, no dice.
No, he's not on mute. He's just having an audio problem.
Oh, okay.
Well, hey
It looks
everybody.
like.
Connor Bush here, stepping in for Brent. Is it just a generic introduction?
You can make it as special as you want it, Connor. Go for it.
I guess, yeah, topically. So salesperson, been in sales, a decade plus now, super duper burned out, sometime between 2020 and 2021, like, real bad, all sorts of figuring it out for months. I think it probably lasted a year till I felt like kind of normal again. So been there, done that, not trying to do it again. Happy to be here to see all the tips and tricks I should have done like 5 years ago.
Awesome. Never too late.
Never too late.
Jacqueline, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. I was a little late, so I don't know what the prompt is, but I'm Jacqueline Nicholson, been in sales for way too long, like 20 plus years. And I'm a big believer in mindset and making sure that all the things I'm doing are meeting the long-term goals that I have.
Excellent. Okay. Well, guys,
Can we give Brent another chance here?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can.
My computer, I don't know why, when I go between like Zoom and Google Meet and everything, sometimes it like switches my microphone. I was going to say, I was close to Brian. That's why I was trying to follow him. Sales leader, 68 person company called Primevo. Just picked up the third part of our sales organization on Monday. So I've got 2 leaders reporting into me now, plus some field AEs. The goal is to eventually hire a leader to lead the field AEs, but balancing the tight rope, I feel like, of here's more, and figure out how to do it. And we're just going to keep putting stuff under you and don't get burnt out because we need you. So kind of similar to Brian. That's why I was trying to go right after him.
Yeah, do more with less, right? That seems to be the topic of the day around any company right now. Okay, well, I'm here to help you guys. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Amy Looper. I'm out of Arizona. I was in sales, corporate sales, enterprise, cybersecurity, healthcare IT. I ran sales teams, and I was an enterprise gal before I burned out in early 2020, 2 weeks before the pandemic. I think God knew to just kind of like carry me through that period, because I don't know what would have happened if I would have continued through the pandemic. I probably would have like gone like totally off the wall. But I just, woke up one day and I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. But the thing is the burnout is not just one time event. While at that time I was working for a very narcissistic kind of boss. And that was kind of the thing that just put me over the edge of like, I can't do this anymore. Even though I'm making, 300K plus, it was like, this isn't worth it. This is not worth it. And so I ended up leaving, but it was after many, many years. So I had walked into parenting after being a sales leader, top sales performer. Vista gave me this cool BMW, and, I had all the awards and all the accolades. Then I became a mom. And I kept going. I kept, wanted to lead teams and all the things. But I experienced things like postpartum depression. A year later, my father-in-law had decided to take his own life. And then my mother-in-law died like 6 months after that from Parkinson's. And then baby number 2 came around. My husband and I hadn't figured out yet that we could keep having, we kept having these surprise children pop up in our lives. And the second one popped around, and it was like, oh my God, birthing experience, traumatic, PTSD for several years. I didn't really know what it was, other than I felt empty, and I didn't know that things were really out of control emotionally, until I would be in a room, in a conference room, and I'd relive experiences over and over and over and over and over. And I was like, I am going nuts. What's going on? And so eventually it took me to just burn out to get help. It shouldn't have to be that way, which is why I'm on a mission to help all of you, especially in sales, because I know that we're such drivers, we're performers, we are all about hitting the number and going beyond. But in the path of that, we can get lost. Our identity can get wrapped up in the number and the title, in that feeling that your ego feels great when you achieve, and when you don't, you get that low. But all of that can be very addictive when you go through the highs and the lows. And that's where we start to see anxiety, depression, and ultimately things like burnout, right? It happens over a longer period of time. So I want to help you prevent that if we can at all. If any of you are really experiencing it and you're like, no, I'm already there, like you're not alone and you're in the right place, to really use some of these tools that we're going to go through today to really help you shift. We're going to go through 4 shifts. I'm going to give you some tactical things. Feel free to take pictures. If you want to screenshot any of this stuff, go for it. Some of the information I'm going to give you today is information I give my clients. So I just want you guys to really have a better experience. Whether you're in corporate, I don't think we have anybody here that's an entrepreneur other than Ryan and Scott. Anybody else in solopreneur land or doing any of that kind of crazy stuff? Okay. All right, cool. But even if you're listening to this and you are, you're going to be stressed whether you're in that corporate seat or in an entrepreneurial seat. Trust me, that doesn't change. I thought it was going to, but it doesn't. So I'm going to share some slides with you here in a second. Feel free to just come off on mute, ask questions. We can be open dialogue here, okay? Is there anything else that you guys are looking for by the end of this you want to get out of today? Okay, if there's anything that comes up, just all let me know. So the first, let me just share my screen here. The first shift that we really need to do is we need to step into a place of emotional regulation. And, sometimes we get into that place where we feel burned out. We're like, oh, that damn bully boss is like so narcissistic. He's such a jerk, right? This is why I'm burned out. And you go into that whole story. But you have to shift out of that because it's really not a one-time event, right? And it's your responses and how much energy you're putting into the things that are coming up, whether you're anxious or fearful, maybe your leadership's coming over the top, like whatever it is, right? So we have to shift out of that. So that's shift number 1, so that we can get to shift number 2, which is really reclaiming your power. And this has everything to do with your personal leadership. So if any of you feel like you've been people pleasers in the past, maybe you have a tendency for perfection. You've been defined by your achievements. You love all the awards, but you're really feeling tired. Or maybe you're at the end of the day going like, look, I've made a boatload of money and I'm still not happy. You might actually be motivated by impact. And so you might be a natural person that's like, I just want to help people. And if I make a lot of money doing it, awesome, because I can help more people. But that can often drive into a behavior, which is FOMO, where you always have to be a part of everything. And for any of you, how many parents and caregivers do I have that are on? Okay, cool. About half. So those of you that care for other people outside of yourself, sometimes you find yourself like, I got to control this. I got to be involved in that. And I got to be involved in everything. And you're like, how in the world do I balance parenting and caregiving? You have to relinquish control. That's a hard one for us drivers. And you don't have to always be in the middle of everything. So we want to reclaim our power and be really intentional about how we're using our energy so that we stay out of this. And this is the chronic stress cycle. The chronic stress cycle really starts with emotions like feeling fear, anxiety. A couple of you mentioned that earlier, feeling overwhelmed. And your brain's just automatically going to, start to look for things like, well, I need validation from other people. Maybe your self-worth has been attached to outside validation. So your brain's automatically going to go looking for that. Like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And so right there, right at that point, you have literally delivered your power to someone else or something on a gold platter. Totally destroys your confidence. And so your body responds to that. It's not just your brain. It's somatic in your body, because your body's going to go like, oh gosh, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Even if you're in the boardroom. And your brain's going to start to look at the what ifs, the past patterns in your lives. That's why your energy can be so drained. And you feel like, dude, I just totally hit burnout, or I just totally hit this place where I am not well and I got to call off sick for a couple of days. So we want to shift from that, and it takes a holistic approach. I think we've all done the thing, right? We're like, oh, had a bad patch, I'm going to call a therapist. Or I used to do the job hopping thing. I'd be a high performer for a while, and no matter how like great my last year was, if I saw something fearful in my way, like I'd say, oh my gosh, they pulled an account. How am I going to deal with this? I would totally, instead of going to leadership and working it out with them and figuring it out with them and knowing confidently my worth, I would just bail. I would just be like, oh, I'm off to the next thing every year and a half or so. Overworking, drinking, Tequila Tuesday. I love Luparitas, but it's not going to solve my burnout problem. And the biggest one I see with high achievers is denial. People that come to me when things are super broken. And it's like, guys, let's not wait until you're losing an arm and a leg because you're so stressed. So it doesn't really make sense to keep doing that. But what we can do is stay out of this cycle by leading with intention. I think somebody mentioned intention earlier. This is how you really do it well, okay? For those of you who are like, oh, I got to become better at like a little bit more solid in creating boundaries and doing those things, start with your intention throughout the day. What do you want to create as impact today? Stay out of the doing, stay out of the to-do list, stay out of all the meetings. Who cares? Those are just things. But what kind of impact are you creating in the world today? What's your ripple? Step into your power and just state that to yourself. I actually write it down in the morning because I'm a total, I don't know about you, but those visionaries that are out there, we like to get our hands in everything and then we become unfocused and then we never finish anything. So I have to actually write it down. Then step 2 is to regulate your nervous system. I want you to take at least 3 breaks a day. How many of you take breaks throughout the day intentionally? Awesome. Ryan's like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, no, it's all good. And you really need to take emotional, physical, spiritual breaks every single day. Emotional break, an example of that, maybe journaling. If I was never a big journaler before, but now I get more into it in the work that I do, especially. But really being in a place of recognizing the things that you're doing well, giving yourself recognition and looking back like a day and saying, wow, I did this really well. I was courageous in this action. I created this new deal. I created this new connection that I would have never done before. But giving yourself time to recognize it so that your brain gets more evidence that you can do awesome new things. You got to rewire the wiring upstairs, Physical, get outside, go to the gym, those kind of things. And then spiritual, connect with something outside of yourself, whatever you align to. But just really connect with that impact piece because that's going to start to flip your whole way of thinking into being outward focused versus inward and being in scarcity and fear and anxiety. Step 3 of leading with attention is to create boundaries that really support it. So once we know our vision, then we can create the boundaries. I can't remember who, I think maybe Jessica, it was you. You were talking about boundaries, I think, earlier. And, if you know the impact that you are called to make in your new role, maybe you're trying to figure that out a little bit. That's a great place to just kind of check yourself and like, maybe I need to work with my team and really identify that. But once you do, then the boundaries become really clear and then it will make sense to other people because boundaries are not all about saying no. Boundaries are about communicating in a caring and a connected, loving way what you want and what you don't want. And without boundaries, our colleagues, our spouses, our parents, our neighbors, like nobody can really read us authentically if we don't have them. So think of boundaries not as a bad thing, but as a really good way of communication. And then step 4 is really being courageous, right? We have to rewire that brain. We're going to go more into this here in a second about courage and how to really leverage that. But the 4th shift, that if you're having a hard time and you are really in a pattern of a lot of stress, anxiety, get a mentor. You can get a coach. You can get a colleague of yours to be a mentor, someone that is not emotionally attached to you. That's key. Somebody that is completely objective, that can hold you accountable, and that is going to help you grow from a limited mindset to a growth mindset and make sure that you stay in committed action so that you can actually transform. So courage, the emotion that I want you to take away today that will help you flip in any situation. The next time you feel the arrows of fear and anxiety coming in at you, hitting you at all sides, I want you to focus on courage, okay? Because this is the thing that flips you into complete transformation in your life, okay? Are you guys familiar with the emotional scale? Anybody seen this before? Okay, this is a little woo. I'm a little woo at times, but I just want to give you a visual because I love showing. This is something we go through really in depth in my coaching business with my clients, and it really starts to make sense to them because most of them come in here. They're like, Amy, I'm fearing something. I lost my job. I don't think I can make it to director level. My marriage is broken. My kids hate me, like all that kind of stuff, right? And they're in fear. Maybe they're grieving. I had a gal come in and she was going through a 10th round of IVF therapy and she just went through a miscarriage, like big life stuff. But the problem is not all the circumstance. We are all greater than our circumstance. And so if we're operating down here, look at what that is. You're just getting by. You are just surviving. And you're not able to really create much or emit much energy out into the world if you're just in survival mode, right? Fear is really constricting. So if you feel that feeling, which is completely normal and human, we all feel it, just notice it and just say, oh crap, all right, I don't want it to constrict me. I have more power than my emotion. And when I climb up here to courage, that's going to help me transform into a place of really a successful place to operate. And so as we climb the ladder, I love it when my clients get angry. I'm like, yay, you're almost there. Keep going. They get courageous. They start to accept some circumstances and shit in their life because you know what? It happens. Then they start to come up here and go, oh, wait a minute. Clients are coming to me. I'm getting that $10 million deal. You know, my team loves me. Well, why is that? Well, it's because they're being this up here. They're being peace. They're being happy, even if they wake up on the wrong side of the bed. They're being in love and contribution to other people and in service. That's where flow is. And that's how you can shift really, really quickly off of fear and anxiety. Does anybody have questions about that? Okay. So, we talked about regulating your nervous system. Make sure, take a screenshot of this if this helps you. Take breaks every 40 to 60 minutes throughout the day. Take a quick break because you want to tell your body like, hey, I'm giving back to you. I'm letting you chill out for a second. Make sure you're getting your water and eating on all that good stuff, but really getting out away from Zoom, shifting your field of vision and really getting into a different place so that you can really feed your mind, body, and soul what it needs to be a high performer. This is how, I've been studying entrepreneurs a lot after becoming one. And I'm like, oh, how are these guys doing it? I know this one guy, Kai Ryan, he's amazing. He ran 12 marathons in 160 hours around each continent. He runs 5 companies. He has 3 kids. I'm like, you are amazing. What are you doing? and this is what they do. They really are regimented about managing their energy. So this is so key for you guys in sales. This routine is something my clients get. So feel free to take a quick snapshot of it as well. This 5-minute morning routine will change your life. It changed mine. What I didn't realize after many, many years of being in the busy, overwhelmed kind of being was I was so attached to just doing. Dropped the kids off of daycare with the nanny or whatever, came back, poured coffee, hopped right into a meeting. I didn't take 5 minutes to myself to create an intention, to be in gratitude of what was actually happening in my life. Why? Because I was so stuck in the achievement. I was like, well, nothing's ever good enough. I have to go to the next thing. And I never appreciated the last thing. Even when I got a $50,000 commission check several times, it was like, nah, that's not good enough. I want to go to 100. So you have to be in gratitude, looking at your opportunities differently. It's like, why did I burn out? And why did I go through that? And why did this terrible thing happen to my family? What was the opportunity? What did I learn? Visualize what you want so that you can start to see your progress towards it instead of getting stuck in the little details where you can feel really anxious about it during the day. So, some takeaways are really to commit to your intention, create that impact ripple, and become a strong finisher. When you're committed, then you'll finish stuff. If any of you have a hard time finishing things, you might be just focused on too many things. So focus on smaller, not 50 things at once. Do one thing at a time, do 2 things at a time, and build your stamina to be able to finish things in completion, to give your brain that evidence. And then, as you create boundaries, you're naturally going to have an increase in your energy. It'll just rise naturally, and you'll be like, wow, I feel a lot better. I feel naturally re-energized. I wonder how that happened. Well, it's because you're protecting your energy and you're not letting it seep out on things that are just wasting your time. So these are the key 4 takeaways for today. We talked a little bit about mindset. We talked a little bit about nervous system regulation. We talked about, shifting your focus and your way of being and in your behavior. And what you believe is what you become, right? Because what you believe impacts your behavior. So you've got to regulate those emotional reactions, reclaim your power. If you're feeling fear, ask yourself, what's the courageous action I can take in this moment? Lead your mind, your energy, and your purpose with intention. And just stay open and coachable. There's always someone ready to coach and be able to be that third-party advocate for you. And it's the best investment of time and of anything that you can really make, is to have that person pull you up into a new level. So
Amy, would you mind if
yeah, go ahead.
Because I think this is absolutely fantastic. And I actually think these 4 things can be applied to solve for the situation that I'm about to ask about. But even just in your experience, maybe even like what after you've sort of gone through your own journey of really understanding yourself and these things and how they can impact your life in a professional and personal way, is there anything that you would have done differently? Or is there any advice that you would give to somebody that might be working in one of those environments where high pressure, all the stuff that we know, but in particular, your boss, the person you're directly reporting into, is in a position of power, whether that be CEO or in the C-suite in general, or somebody that has a significant title. They are narcissistic, or they are, I guess the fear would be that if you try to articulate some of these things as to why you need to draw these boundaries and why you need to take more control over, how it is that you're showing up at work, that it's not going to be met with the response that you're hoping for. Maybe that's part of the problem, that you're expecting that to begin with. But I'm just curious how you sort of face that, and what advice might be to some of your clients.
100%. So 2 things there. And my personal career experience with that type of boss, also, I realized I was creating that in my own personal relationships, going like, oh my gosh, it's not even intentional, but like, I'm really like, people are using my time and I'm just bending over backwards. And I talk about this with my clients as an example, is like, you're kind of like that spaghetti noodle bending around the fork, you're just bending over backwards, and then you wonder why you're depleted. Well, it's because you're people pleasing. So, that's the first thing. You have to realize that you're doing it, and it's not an overnight fix. You can't be like, stop people pleasing, because it's so in your subconscious behavior, and it roots back to childhood. It roots back to all the things way back in the day. So you got to work on that. And that's why coaching is so impactful, I think, for transformation. But realizing that, and then when you get to a place where you're like, okay, now I'm really ready to figure out what I want. The old question, what do you want? I remember being in a transformational leadership room once as a student, and I was in front of 200 people. I was the last one standing, not able to answer that question. And I was a wall. I wasn't even emotional about it. I was like, I don't know what the F I want. I don't know. And it was because I was so disassociated from emotion. And so when you go through that process of really becoming clearer on what you want, you will become closer to yourself, you will be closer to your emotions, and you will be able to then set those boundaries. And when you set those boundaries at that point in time, hopefully you're strong enough to then be consistent with them, because that's where the real change comes in. And to your point, those people that haven't been used to receiving boundaries from you are going to have some resistance naturally as human beings, because they're going to be like, whoa, she's not just going to roll over and say, yeah. Like, yeah. So it's a different experience, right? But great question. And that's really the process that looking back, I'm like, yep, I do it now. And that's a process I could have done back then if I knew what I knew now.
I love that. And I feel like having being somebody that had to go through that shift in a really high pressure, difficult environment, like you start to get back what you give out. And by that, I mean, like, when you start consistently delivering on setting those boundaries, that just becomes sort of the status quo, and it's exponentially better than it was before. And I think in part, it depends on the person, but in my experience, some of those people then gain more confidence in your ability and trust you more and are less abrasive in those engagements because they know that you're confident in yourself. Because I feel like sometimes the dynamic of those leadership situations where it is fear-led, you lose confidence, you lose control in yourself, and then when you counteract that, especially if you can tolerate to work with the person and they realize maybe they were doing some things that weren't conducive to you being yourself, they're like, okay, wow, maybe I should be changing my leadership style to be more supportive of this person in the way that they want to be led. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, totally. I think, being so strong in your ability to be authentic and really just have those, big conversations. And for people that are kind of disassociated with their emotions, it can feel really scary. I mean, it literally can feel like, oh my gosh, but just know that those are great leadership conversations to have. It shows and builds authority. And then you build your impact and influence. And so as you go to next layers, maybe from mid-level to director and above, like, you will have to develop that muscle. What questions do you guys have? What was the most, what was something new that you learned today that you didn't know before?
When you showed the super nifty upside down rainbow pyramid thing with all the cool words on it.
Yeah, same.
What the particular thing about that, something that you mentioned, being those things or acting as those things, I always saw them as destinations, as places I needed to get to. But that it's fluid, that I can act as any given one in any given moment, like, broke my brain. I was like, I that makes so much sense. But I always thought of each one as a level I had to get to versus something I could initiate on the spot.
Oh, you just made my whole week. Seriously. Yes. Being, it's all about being. Yes.
I loved every part of it. The scale for me was the big one. But, I've always had people like, well, how do you define success? And I've said for years that success to me is being the woman my husband would marry again, the mother that my children are proud of, and the boss, the person that a boss would hire again or a customer would work with again. But even though that's my go-to, I still can find myself in this mode of just, feeling completely helpless or angry or, pick an emotion.
Oh, 100%. And we're humans, right? Like Israel the other day, I was really down and out yesterday morning, and I decided, and I have the flexibility as a founder that can just kind of control my schedule, but I was like, you know what? I need an hour. I need an hour to just kind of like, oof, and so, yeah, we're dealing with a transforming world. And so with that, I think we all feel it. But good for you for knowing the experience that you want in all those areas of your life. That's seriously kudos to you, Jacqueline, because that's where it starts. You know, you have to just set your eye on that, be that, and you will create it.
Yeah. This is less maybe something new and more of just like a reaffirmation of what I already knew. In that like consistency is such an important part of this. So I guess the question is, do you see that as one of, if not the biggest hurdle that folks that you work with run into, is the ability to embrace these things in a consistent way so that they can actually, get through to the other side, so to speak?
Yes. And the reason why is your consistency will be as high as your commitment level. So if you are half in, your consistency is going to be wonky, right? If you're less than 50, it's really going to be wonky, but it always mirrors your commitment level. Just like when we look at our sales performance or our business performance, it's the same thing. It's like, why was my last quarter off? Oh yeah. I was kind of in, I was kind of out. I'm not really sure, and so, yeah.
I guess a question that I have looking back on my own experience, when I was in all the signs that burnout was coming, that things were getting worse, I couldn't see it at the time, right? It was only when it was like, everything fell apart, the bottom came out, complete collapse, that I was like, oh, something's wrong. Then I started doing the work and everything made sense, and I saw all the signs along the way. Is there a tip or a trick? I mean, to especially in salespeople, at least for myself, I can justify anything, right? I can argue any point. I can convince myself whatever I want, right? Delusions beyond measure. So for folks like that and in that spot, how do you see it before it gets to that point, I guess?
Delusions beyond measure. I feel like that's a t-shirt.
I'm full of one.
Yeah. No, I get it. So it's that check. It's that 5-minute routine in the morning where you do that check with yourself. Okay, where am I at? Where was that, where am I going? What's going on? And you have to have that peaceful time to yourself where you don't have somebody in your ear, on the phone, kids in the room, spouse needing something, whatever. You need that time to just quiet your brain. And that's where you get the clarity, in my opinion.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Because I think in survival mode, inherent part of that is you're not stopping. There is 24/7 fight or flight, like it said, right?
Yep.
So forcing yourself to stop, all the spooky scaries will come to the top, I'm sure.
Yeah. Like as I've built my business over the years, there's been many times my husband's been right alongside me going like, dude, you need to chill out. Like, he's like, you're fine. And I'm like, no, I'm not, and I'll get frantic. And that's that scarcity, that fight or flight and all of that. And it's a choice. So when you feel that, say, wait a minute, I am more powerful than this. I can choose if I'm going to let that suck my day, or if I'm just going to literally tell Felicia to go sit in the corner, mind her own damn business, and move on to a different, better choice.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? Grace, welcome.
Hello. Sorry for being late.
Oh, you're good.
So many good screenshots, Grace. I'll send you the 3 of my highlights right now in your LinkedIn. But just get ready.
Sweet.
Grace, is there anything just based on what you caught that, and I know this is sort of a topic that's near and dear to your heart. Is there anything that you wanted to? I didn't mean that in a joking way.
No, I appreciate it. I think the bit that I caught that was rather timely is that drawing and holding boundaries is what allows for that re-energization. Because I've been tired the last couple of days of oh God, okay, on a hard time focusing, and have been just literally for the last 24 hours I've been sugar, looking, looking for that to keep going. And so one of the things that I had sort of assigned myself to do this week was to really sit down and look at, of all the things that I'm doing, which ones need to actually take priority and which ones am I allowing to sort of supersede because I have, or it's easier, or I feel more worthy, or like take whatever, you know, belief is like sticking in there to like grab the wheel and throw it off course. So yeah, so the boundaries one was like, I was like, ooh, yeah, I probably need to look at that.
Yeah, boundaries is one part, but then also how we're fueling our body, you know, and I'll just throw this out there too. I mean, this goes for men and women, but especially women, especially in midlife, like we're going through a lot of things. And so when we get addicted to sugar, trust me, I have been inflammation central in my past life. You know, you have to really feed it with differently. And for high performance, you know, the cruciferous vegetables, the protein, and all those things that will take that down, because actually your anxiety will go down. When your body's not going like, alert, alert, I've had 10 cups of coffee, you know, that's not helping. So just those little tweaks throughout your whole week will really help.
Yeah, thank you, for sure.
Awesome. Well, you guys have been awesome. Thank you for participating. Thank you for liking the subject matter. But it's all about your performance. And so I hope this helps you.
Can you tell everybody the best place to get a hold of you, contact you, learn more about what you're up to?
Oh yeah, I knew I had one more little slide here. Hold on. You guys can take a picture of this or scan it. But yeah, we can connect on LinkedIn. It's amyleelooper.com is my website. I do you know, coaching. I'm an author. I wrote a book, but I also do speaking. So if you guys are leading teams or need someone to come in and facilitate a workshop, happy to connect on that as well.
Sweet. All right. Thanks so much, Amy. We appreciate you spending some time with us. And thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week for the 100th episode of Tequila.
Ooh,
Thanks,
very
everybody.
nice.